I'm sorry I had to do that. There's no time for hysteria.
Women have been called hysterical for overreacting to pain for thousands of years. But when you look back in history, these hysteria symptoms sound an awful lot like endometriosis, one of the most common gynecological diseases in women. It causes heavy periods, infertility, and generalized pain. Dr. Farnajat has studied the history of endometriosis, and he believes there's much we can learn.
Whenever you go to the history, you learn from the history. As long as women have existed, most possibly endometriosis was there. We wanted to go back.
How far back? Try 4,000 years. Women with endometriosis symptoms were described in ancient Egypt.
The painting on the walls, they have drawing of the women that have been suffering. They were called it suffocated uterus.
Fast forward a couple thousand years to around 400 BC in ancient Greece. It was the time of Hippocrates, the father of medicine, and for the first time, doctors could link together the symptoms of pain, infertility, and menstrual dysfunction. They called it hysteria.
Hippocrates himself described the hysteria, called the Greek word of hysterico. The root goes to the uterus, hystero. When women had the pain, so they knew this is coming from the uterus. And it is unfortunate that the word of the hysteria is being related to women.
Okay, so maybe calling it hysteria feels mean. But now that we've got a diagnosis, we can start treating it, right? Wrong. Once doctors diagnosed the problem, they had no idea how to cure it. So they tried some pretty unconventional methods.
A lot of women, unfortunately, have been mistreated for centuries. There were all kinds of treatment that they thought could alleviate the pain.
Hippocratic authors, they recommended various concoctions and fumigants, which included ingredients like male urine. I love it. Leeches were placed in the uterus in order to suck up the blood.
They thought the uterus is suffocated, and if they suck the blood from the uterus, they get better.
Women were hung upside down so that their wandering uterus could, just move back up to the correct location in the body.
And they thought if the uterus moves up, the pain gets better.
It's creative, I guess. A common symptom of endometriosis is subfertility, so many women sought medical help to conceive. Unfortunately, coming forward with their condition led to some pretty horrible name-calling from society at large.
They accused women being nymphomaniac. They thought maybe these people want to get pregnant and have lots of sex.
Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France before the revolution, was one of those women.
They thought that she was a nymphomaniac because going to a gynecologist or to a physician very often.
In retrospect, she likely had endometriosis. But nymphomaniac wasn't the only accusation lobbed at these women. Some of them were accused of being witches.
These women had endometriosis. They may be looking at the pregnant women and they have bad thoughts. This is witchcraft. They thought these people are witches. A woman that were punished, even they dropping off the bridges or twisting them. These people have been killed, executed. They accuse them of being mentally ill and not fit for the society.
Those with mental disorders were often imprisoned in mental institutes. Patients were physically restrained in prison cells with chains and straitjackets. The introduction of anesthesia in the mid-18th century made surgical treatments more feasible. Hooray! The mortality rates were reportedly as high as 70%. Oh, Some doctors would dig out endometriosis lesions with blunt scissors, or even their own frickin' fingernails. Even as recently as the early 20th century, doctors were failing to see and treat the true cause of hysteria.
Freud made it worse. He thought that these women, this is all hysteria. Instead of looking for the cause of the pain, he mentioned that it's all in their head, not physical.
Sure, it's been 80 years since Freud, but you'd be surprised how little has changed. Women still take 10 years to get diagnosed on average, and many of the myths around hysteria remain.
When the ancient time, they call it hysteria, It means they didn't pay attention to the source. The same thing is today. Still, some physicians, they tell them it is your head. Even they encourage them to get pregnant, the pain goes away. And that creates problem for that woman. Women have been suffering and is still suffering from this condition.
"I'm not crazy, you're crazy" is a phrase that actually makes sense when it comes to endometriosis. For millennia, women suffering from period pain have been treated like they're just hysterical. But these women are just trying to find treatment. The least we can do is recognize and legitimize their pain that comes with endometriosis. And I guess if you want to do something else, you could offer them a few leashes. I don't think that'll work, though. That's just me. "I'll get you, my pretty, and your endometriosis, too." I am a witch.